Today I'd like to talk about how having different thoughts inside your organization will help your team skyrocket. One reason that schools and other organizations stagnate is that they lack diversity. Now you can think of diversity in the traditional ways in terms of gender or ethnicity, sexual orientation, religion, could be socioeconomic, any way that you slice it. But one way that we forget about diversity sometimes is just in diversity of worldview, perspective, diversity in how we think. And here's an example. A lot of times when we hire for core values. We hire for cultural fit. That in itself is not a bad thing. We should continue to do so, but only when it makes sense. Now, if it closes us off to diverse points of view, this gets us in trouble, and I'd like to tell you a story about that in just a second. Today, we're also going to talk about 3 ways we can really mine and welcome and solicit diverse thinking. So we're going to talk about brainwriting, premortems, and backcasting. So first, the story I wanted to share. When I was a baby principal down somewhere in the South, I was hired, and this school was a really nice school. It had a strong sense of tradition. But what we find is obviously sometimes our biggest strength is also our greatest weakness, and we don't consider that fact. So the thing with having a strong tradition is that what I found was the hiring team wanted to hire more of what they already have, which is great. But we've all heard this quote that insanity is doing the same thing over and over again, yet expecting different results. And so here's the deal. If we keep moving forward in a similar path, we're never going to get to a different destination. And this school was a really good school. I'd give it the grade of a B. It could never attain an A grade unless it was willing to question its own history, traditions, cultural values, core values, that kind of thing. And until they brought in diverse points of view that pushed the buttons and pushed the thinking in a different path, then it was always going to get the same type of results. For them, that was okay. And it's okay if you're okay with that, as long as you are aware and you recognize it. But when I work with top performing organizations and what I would call A-playing principals, they want to be the best. They want to get the most juice out of a lemon when they squeeze it. Well, then you're going to have to open up your organization to diversity. Diversity in any way you can cut it, especially in terms of perspective and worldview. So up next, I want to teach you 3 activities where you can get the most diverse thoughts introduced into a setting like a meeting. Up first, we're going to talk about brainwriting, which is a very simple activity. So the idea of brainwriting is just a bit of a spin on something we've all heard of and all have participated in, which is brainstorming. The number one problem with brainstorming is that usually the first voice and or the loudest voice, usually that idea wins. Not because of merit, not because it's the best idea that is brought to the table, but sometimes it's just because it was first, it was loudest. People less confident maybe in their own ideas, opinions, thinking, strategy, all that type of stuff, they'll be less likely to share their ideas if they're drowned out by the loudest and first voice. It's the opposite of brainstorming. So you don't say, hey, here's a topic, here's a project, here's a challenge that we need to address. Instead of doing that live and then having a discussion, you're going to challenge your team to say, hey, we're going to talk about topic X at tomorrow's meeting. Over the next 24 hours, I want you to process this challenge, this project, this problem. I want you even to write down half a page to a page of a thoughtful response to this project challenge problem. Bring that thoughtful response to tomorrow's meeting and be prepared to share your idea. So now let's fast forward. It's 24 hours later. Everybody is around the meeting table, and instead of the first and loudest voice that wins, you ask and you call around you to share their ideas. Better yet, have people exchange their brainwriting prior to the meeting and have them read somebody else's ideas. this does a couple things. One, we're not so attached in terms of our ego that we wrote this content, and so we're just going to share it because it's not necessarily our idea. Plus, that helps the person reading and then everybody listening engage at a deeper level from a thought that is not even theirs. So we're hearing better ideas, we're seeing better ideas, and we're engaging with better ideas around that meeting. So that's all I have to say about brainwriting. Up next is an idea that I call premortems. I'm sure that we've all heard the idea of a postmortem. Maybe there's a murder, maybe somebody dies unexpectedly, a person expires, and a postmortem occurs. That's when a doctor looks at a body and they do a bunch of different things to find out the reason, the cause for death. And that way they can determine if there was foul play involved or something else that needs to be investigated. Well, that's post. That's after the fact. You can't do anything for that poor person who has died. Well, if we take that sort of approach and apply it to ideas, projects, challenges, and we do it a premortem, that means before this project dies, here's how I want you to set it up. Ask everybody in a faculty meeting, in a leadership team meeting, whatever that is, ask your team, why is this project bound to fail? Seriously, like, what are we doing to self-sabotage things within our control, maybe even stuff outside of our control? But why is this project, idea, this initiative destined to fail? And push people. If they say one thing, applaud that one idea that comes out and keep mining for more critiques. Challenge your team to come up with 10, 50, 100 different ways why the project, initiative, whatever will fail. And what you're going to find now is you're going to see all the different reasons that your project will fail. But now if you address them, right? Oh, I didn't think of that, this could happen. Now you're prepared for it, right? And so you can address any challenges that happen before they happen and prepare for those so you don't have blind spots. And it's also great because you might find a showstopper. I don't know how to define that for you, but at least the sense of a showstopper means that if this thing were to happen, we would pull the plug immediately. Well, if you anticipate that that thing is very likely to happen, then there's no reason you can't pull the plug before even launching the project, the idea, the initiative. And that's all I have to say about premortems. And so the third thing I want to teach you in terms of soliciting the best ideas, the different ideas to really help your team skyrocket is the idea of what's called backcasting. So the cool thing about backcasting, it's the opposite approach of a premortem. So the premortem is why a project, idea, initiative is destined to fail. Backcasting is why is a project, idea, initiative destined for success. This helps too, especially in organizations that tend to be more critically minded. You also want to have a full representation of all the good stuff that can happen too. And so if there are cheerleaders but they're surrounded by critics, they might be less likely to share stuff they're excited about. And we want to fan the flames and really amplify good things happening within our organization. So unlike the premortem, just in backcasting, what are all the positive things that could come out of this project, idea, or initiative? And just like a premortem, after one thought, 5 thoughts, 10 thoughts, just ask, is there anything else? Push your team, come up with 10 more ideas, 20 more ideas, or whatever, but just keep mining for all the great stuff. Now, the neat thing about backcasting, when you combine that with a premortem, you have a full, realistic picture of what could happen. It is a model of the future, and since you had the positive overlaid with the negative, you have a great sense of really what could happen, and you are now better prepared. So I hope you enjoyed today's video on how having different ideas within your organization can help your team skyrocket. If you're able to break out of the mold, to bring in diverse thinking into your team setting, I guarantee that your team's effectiveness will absolutely multiply. As I mentioned before, here's Alba, so she's continuing to grow. Still sleepy. I tend to, get her around nap times when we're finishing up videos. But speaking of videos, if you liked today's video, please give it a thumbs up. Hit subscribe if you haven't subscribed to the channel yet. And in the comments below, if there's something special that your organization does to solicit, to invite divergent perspectives, different perspectives to the table, I want to learn from the best. So please put in the comments below, what's one thing your school, your organization does to invite the best and different perspectives around your organization. I'll see you in the next video, and until next time, go make a ruckus.